It's Marty from the Black Father Support Group, and welcome to another one of our catch-up sessions. How the language of mental health can be somewhat confusing, because you'll find that there's some people who will act a certain way, and then they'll be diagnosed as having mental health problems, and another person can act the exact same way and be diagnosed as being eccentric because of the fact that money has an impact on whether people view you one way or another. Another example is where you would see a behavior in one culture seen as acceptable and then in another culture unacceptable. So, and then if you was to speak to someone, let's say, for example, on the continent, I'm talking about Africa, not Europe, speak to someone on the continent and you tell them that you work, you leave your house, it's still dark when you leave your house, you travel on a train squashed up with lots of other people who are also going to work. You get to your work and you'll eat a sandwich and a drink. You'll be there until it's dark again. You'll come home. At the end of the month, you'll do that for a whole month. And at the end of the month, you'll have enough money to be able to pay your bills and get back to doing the work again. They'll look at you like you're crazy because, that isn't a necessity for many people over in Africa. So, again, it's like the cultural difference will decide as to whether something is sane or insane. Another diagnosis of madness is if you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, again, that is seen as madness, right? So, case in point, I went down last week Friday to a reparations committee, and I got talking with some people afterwards about the point, or what's the point of going out marching, because it's happened a couple of times already. We've seen marches time and time and time again, and they don't actually change anything. I'm not just talking about for African people, I'm just talking about anyone. We could look at, for example, the Stop the War march before the Iraq invasion, thanks to George W. Bush and Tony Blair. You had marches in over 600 cities, simultaneously, millions of people. I wouldn't be surprised if it was up to 1 billion people, but there was millions of people all marching to say, don't go to war. And those people still went to war. You could look at, for example, the students over here in the UK who were saying not to impose tuition fees. In London, there was loads of marches happening, continuous marches, and the Conservative, Lib Dem coalition government still put those tuition fees in effect. So expecting a different result from what you've seen happen time and time again, not work, I would assert is a sign of madness. What I have seen is direct action make a difference. So if you take, for example, way back when over here in the UK, you had the poll tax riots. I remember watching the news and seeing these poll tax riots, and what happened there was literally people around the country were rioting at the same time and smashing the place to bits. It caused a lot of media coverage, which then was able to reinforce the upset of the national conversation about this idea of poll tax. And very quickly after that, Margaret Thatcher resigned from her position as the leader of the Conservative Party. She was one of these people, she had a saying that the Iron Lady is not for bending. She was a sort of person that didn't care about how you felt about anything. And that's how she dealt with her policies, throughout her term, whether it was national or international, that's how she was. But when that kicked off, when the things started getting serious and people were actually willing to spill blood for their beliefs, she was out of there. And when John Major went in afterwards, he quickly scrapped that whole poll tax thing. Oh, and also the suffragettes. I meant to mention the suffragettes. The suffragettes were another set of people who were protesting and nothing was happening. And it was only when they started taking bricks to windows and bombs to letterboxes did they start getting heard. We saw it also in the Brixton riots here in, I think it was 82, was it? And in the Brixton riots, we saw that was because of the fact that the police were so heavy-handed on black people. It created a report to be commissioned on how the police were dealing with black people. And that report actually confirmed the police were heavy-handed and over diligent in how they were stopping and searching men of my hue. Also, they started the Independent Police Complaints Commission, which now in hindsight, I think, I think we all know they're not so independent at all. But what we saw was, again, direct action had a direct result. And you keep seeing that time and time again. And you see things like how the Lawrence family, Doreen and Neville Lawrence, how they had to deal with the police. They didn't go down the route of marching to sort out how the police dealt with the murder of their son. It was the fact that they were doing a lot of work behind the scenes, getting petitioning the government and getting a report written up about that, and having the police having to accept that they're institutionally racist. We had the Bristol boycotts, the Bristol bus boycotts, that was based on the fact that people over there in Bristol were unable to work on the buses except for cleaning them, I think, which the brothers and sisters there obviously knew was way out of order. And when they brought their grievances to the bus company, they weren't being listened to. So they decided that the best way to deal with it was to take a leaf out of the Montgomery bus boycotts, and they boycotted the buses over there in Bristol. And from that, that sort of group removal of funds ensured that they had to think again about withholding, jobs and opportunities for people from the Caribbean. All that to say that I think that there is, however, a positive side to marching. And what I see in all of those accounts is that first it started with the marching. That's what started it off. And it was from that caused the direct action. Maybe, over a period of time, that kicked off. So I can see that, you can't just kick off one time, and maybe there has to be a build up to that. So I can see the marching being very important in that. And also I can see that, I was speaking to a brother Dulani who was saying that when you're on your own and you're not in communication with your community, you can sometimes look at what's going on and feel like as though you're on your own. But when you are there as part of a march and you're seeing thousands of people who agree with your point of view, it kind of makes you be able to rest easy, safe in the knowledge that how you're feeling about things isn't wrong. And so I can see there that there are some good points to it. So I think that as long as it's part of a wider movement and other things are happening, then I think it could work. And from what I've seen from Sister Esther Stansford, I think that clearly has to be going on. She's a very astute sister, and I can see there that she's working on being able to build much more than just a march, much more than just a noise, something where you can hopefully get a clipping in a newspaper. I think that she's on a much bigger program than what is seen at the moment. So that's what we learned this week. It was all about mental health. And I hope that these points that I'll be able to give gives you something to think about. Until next week, This is Marley from the Black Father Support Group, and I'm signing out.